Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're diving into a really fascinating high-stakes moment in heavy industrial plant construction. It's a massive milestone that folks in the industry call the box-up inspection. So if you've ever looked at a giant petrochemical plant or refinery and thought, man, how do they make sure those massive pressure cookers actually run safely? Well, the answer is all about the crazy intense preparation that happens literally right before they seal them shut. To put this into perspective, imagine checking your apartment one last time before locking the door, handing the keys over to the new owner, and knowing you can never, ever go back inside to fix a mistake or grab something you forgot. No way, right? Well, that intense feeling of finality, that is exactly the vibe during a box-up inspection, just on a multi-million-dollar heavy industrial scale. So, what does this term actually mean? In simple terms, a box-up literally means closing the equipment's door for good. It's the definitive proof, the declaration really, that the inside of this gigantic piece of machinery is in absolutely perfect condition. Once that door is bolted shut, the internal construction phase is officially over and the whole shebang is ready for handover to the plant owner.
Now, these access doors, they're called manholes, look pretty unremarkable from the outside. Throughout the months or years of construction, these manholes are the main way workers crawl in and out to install parts or check welds. But sealing them up, that represents the ultimate point of no return for the installation crew. Once that heavy steel plate goes on, nobody is getting back inside.
Section 1. Safety first. The critical rule of nozzle isolation. Okay, so before the inspector even thinks about stepping a single foot inside, we absolutely have to tackle human safety. Climbing inside these huge vessels isn't like walking into a room. It's classified as confined space work, and let me tell you, it's incredibly dangerous. We're talking about climbing down steep ladders into deep, dark, enclosed steel cavities with very restricted airflow. Because of this, there are incredibly strict safety protocols that have to be followed to the letter.
And that brings us right to the top of the inspection checklist. To guarantee the inspector's safety, all connected nozzles and pipes must be physically isolated. Basically, this means physically blocking off the entire piping network so there is zero chance, and I mean absolutely zero chance of hazardous gases, chemicals, or liquids accidentally leaking into the space while someone is in there. It's a totally non-negotiable prerequisite.
Section 2. The internal walkthrough. Installations and absolute cleanliness.
Right, so once the environment is confirmed 100% safe and isolated, the inspector steps inside. Now their job is to meticulously run through a checklist. They're checking that highly specific internal mechanics, like vortex breakers that stop fluid from swirling dangerously, or distributor pipes, are installed flawlessly. And it's not just the big stuff. They're making sure the exact specified bolts were used and that the proper internal gaskets are seated just right. Every single nut and bolt has to match the master blueprints perfectly.
But beyond just the mechanical parts, there's the absolute strict rule of cleanliness. The inspector demands a surgically clean environment. Why? Well, imagine a single discarded rag, a dropped bolt, or some leftover welding slag getting caught up when the plant is running and fluids are blasting through at high speeds. It would be catastrophic. Actually, some inspectors are so rigorous, they'll demand a ladder just to climb up and check the blind spots, maximizing their inspection range. They leave literally no stone unturned.
Section 3. The door frame. Flange faces and the science of a perfect seal.
So after the inside gets a perfect score, the inspector climbs out and all the focus shifts to the door frame itself, which we call the flange. If you look closely, you'll notice these extremely fine circular lines machined right into the metal. It kind of looks like the grooves on a vinyl record, right? Well, these serration lines are absolutely critical. When that heavy steel door is bolted on, those microscopic grooves literally bite into the sealing material, gripping it super tight to stop explosive pressures from escaping. Now, here's where things get unbelievably delicate. A single radial scratch, meaning a scratch that cuts across those record-like grooves from the inside out to the outside, acts like a microscopic tunnel. If a worker accidentally dragged a heavy chain or dropped a wrench on this face, that tiny scratch guarantees a high-pressure leak once the plant goes live. If the inspector spots a scratch, boom, immediate failed inspection. The face has to be totally flawless.
Section 4. The final closure. Gaskets and the ultimate handover.
With the inside pristine and the flange totally flawless, the final piece of the puzzle before locking up is the gasket. And you can't just slap any gasket in there. The inspector physically verifies the engineering specs, which are actually stamped directly onto the solid metal outer ring of the gasket itself. They check these stamped numbers against the master drawings, just to be absolutely sure it's the exact part designed to handle the crazy chemicals and extreme temperatures of this specific vessel. Because precision is so critical here, workers actually treat these heavy industrial gaskets like fragile glass. You'll often see them hung gently by a piece of cloth near the manhole, rather than being left on the ground or hung by a rough wire. This is all to prevent even the slightest pre-installation scratch or dent. I mean, one timely deformity in the gasket and the whole seal is completely compromised.
So let's look at how this builds to the finish line. The sequence is super unforgiving. First, they verify the specific gasket markings. Then they place that pristine gasket perfectly onto the unscratched flange. And finally, using precise torque, they bolt the manhole closed permanently. The box-up is officially complete.
Once that door is bolted tight and the inspector signs off, we hit a massive milestone. The equipment is officially handed over to the owner. Any remaining punch list items, those tiny little corrections that always pop up during construction, must be fully resolved before this sign-off happens. The installation team's job on this vessel? It's fundamentally done.
With the vessel sealed up like a permanent time capsule, it just sits there quietly on the site. But man, it really leaves you wondering. Knowing the immense safety protocols, the microscopic inspections of metal grooves, and the absolute obsessive cleanliness inside, just how much raw power, heat, and incredible pressure will this vessel have to withstand when the plant is finally turned on? It's a real testament to human engineering. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning how the world around us is actually built.